Welcome, welcome, witches. Happy Sunday. We are really in the month of October. I just can't get over that. Like, it's already been 10 months of book club this year. Like, this is our 10th meeting. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's been such a great experience so far. And yeah, I'm really excited to, close out the year with everyone. But we're not there yet. And anyways, we're all here today to talk about Jambalaya by Luisah Teish. And I really hope I'm saying her name right. I always question myself. And I'm really excited for today's conversation. But yeah, let's get right into it today. Our agenda, as usual, nice and simple. We have our opening announcements, we'll be having our book discussion, and then we'll have our closing announcements. And going forward with our meeting today, I do really quickly just want to say, if I think somebody's mic, Cynthia, it might be your mic, if you could mute yourself just for the sake of sound and clarity. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, and let's keep moving forward. So, as we always do, we'll start with our land acknowledgement, which I feel like every time we get here, I always want to say and do so much more. But something I've been learning this past month is there's only so much that can be done right in a land acknowledgement. And really something I want to continue to say moving forward is whenever we get to this moment, all of us, really challenging all of us to take a second to really find that gratitude within ourselves, and also holding space for the loss that it took to like get us to this position. And then on top of all that, thinking, okay, what can we do moving forward to in reverse is the wrong word here, but what can we do moving forward to continue to really honor the land in ways that make sense with the way we live now, in ways that make sense even beyond those limits. So we humbly honor and acknowledge the land that we stand on, this occupied territory that was once called Lenape-Hoking and is home to the Lenape people. We acknowledge that this land was stolen by settlers and that the mistreatment of its first people continues to this day. While we live in a world that settlers created, we promise to work on building a better world with the help and leadership of the land's original inhabitants. We honor this land and thank you for the many gifts that you give us each day. Thank you for allowing us to fight on with and for you. And the last little thing I wanted to say here, I find like the jambalaya and just the topic and just the wisdom that Luisah brings will, in a lot of ways, kind of really speaks to the part of what does that imagining that better world forward look like. So I'm really excited to talk about this book moving forward today. And from there, we're going to get into our introductions. And today, because it's us, I want to just add a little flair to it. So, we'll do our names, pronouns, magical path, your book progress. And I would be really curious to hear, and we can all take a second to think, what was your highlight of the month? And the highlight of the month for you doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing, right? Because I want to acknowledge that, life happens. Maybe it's a lesson you learned. Maybe it's a really good memory you have. Just something you want to share with the group, and highlight for the month. And I'll give us a second to think about it. And then I'll start with intros today, and then we'll go down the line on the screen. So yeah. All right. And if you still need time to think, you still got it. So hi, everyone. My name's Nori. Pronouns she, they, magical path, eclectic Wiccan, with a lot more folk Catholicism has been coming abound, and book progress. So this month I had a really busy month. So I wasn't able to give the book the time that I wanted to. I mostly skimmed through and just read a few sections here and there, but I definitely am gonna be giving it the time to just really get into the story, because it was such a unique book with the way it's like a memoir, but then she really goes then into, oh, this is what happened in my life, and here's how we can cleanse our house. But I I just love that, and I really want to give it the time because I'm the way authors write. The way authors write their books, right? It's intended to be read a certain way. So I like to honor that, and I want to give her that space. And then a highlight for me this month, really, jobs. I started out at one job this month, and now I just moved into my social work job, and yay, thank you. And throughout that, without getting too nitty gritty of it all, a big lesson that has emerged for me this month is learning to be okay with consistency, and like learning to appreciate the benefits of having like a routine that looks the same, doing the day in, day out, because it provides me stability. And I personally can struggle with the idea of doing the same thing, because I don't know about you guys, but I can sometimes get too in my head about it all. And then I'm like, what am I doing this for? Like, what's the point of anything or whatever? So yeah, I've been learning a lot of lessons this month around consistency, stability, and what that sort of means for me. So that's my little monthly highlight that I got. And going down the line, Steph, take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm Steph. My pronouns are they, them. Magical Path is eclectic, trying to dig up Filipino folk magic. I did finish the book, but like Nuri, I like was really busy, so I did read it, but like I don't know how much I absorbed. And the highlight of my month was I got my first tattoo, and that was pretty great. It's crow and cornflowers. And everyone's been like, that's so big for a first tattoo, but I was like, go big or go home.
I love that note. That tattoo is so cool. And yeah, you're right. Go big or go home. Like, let's go. Thanks for sharing that. Nisi.
Hi everyone, my name is Shanice. Everyone calls me Nisi. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Magical Path is Christian folk witch, and I also finished the book. Let's see, highlight for the month. It's I took me and my kid went to the state fair. We needed like the fun of going to the fair, eating all the food. I found out my child is an adrenaline junkie and he loves to ride rides like his mother used to and like his grandfather used to. His granddaddy jumped out of planes in the army. So we come from a lot of adrenaline junkies. But I found that out about my kid and we needed the fun because in late September, early October, we're in South Carolina, so we got hit with Hurricane Helene. So we needed the fun after days of no power, losing the food in the refrigerator, just trying seeing the city dishevel, power lines, trees, all the things. So we needed the fun. So fun is something to be incorporated. The spirit of laughter, the spirit of fun, something that needs to be incorporated more, especially for me. He knows how to have a good time. It's me that never fell out of step.
I love the fair share because like the fair is such a great time. And yeah, like speaking to the hurricane too, how are you doing? Like how was your area of town and everything?
I live in Greenville currently, but my family is in Columbia. So my mother went at least 4 or 5 days practically without power. So what she had to do to get power, she had to like black folks, we are always very resourceful. She took an extension cord to her neighbor's garage because their garages kind of face each other and we kind of know each other. We know Miss Faye and them. So she took an extension cord from Miss Faye's garage to her garage. So she didn't lose her food. She was able to use her cell phone. She was able to call and let people know that she was okay and safe. And things like that. But like, yeah, we were without power for like 2 days. And that doesn't seem like a long time, but when you have like a child asking you questions like, "Mommy, is everything gonna be okay?" I was like, Lord, baby, I don't know. I don't have these answers. I know we're okay, but yeah. I mean, like someone's car in the apartment that I live in, like got smashed because a very, very, very large branch from a very large tree fell on their F-150 and just like crunched the top part of their car practically. So yeah, scared, scary signs.
No, it definitely sounds like it. Well, I'm glad that you're okay and that you're safe and that you have power because you're here. But yeah, no, thanks for sharing with us. All right. And then Cynthia, how are you?
Hi, I'm Cynthia, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And my magical pack. My magic, I guess it's a pack too. But my magical path is I'm an eclectic witch, and my book progress. I guess it's half and half. I've read this book before, so this was I guess a second time for me. But the strange thing is that a lot of my books, like this book that I have, is in a storage unit, and it has been in a storage unit for 11 years because um last week was my daughter's death date, and I've had that storage unit for 11 years, and I've never been inside of it again. So I ordered this book again, and it came in yesterday. So I ended up skimming through it, and this has been one of the craziest weekends for me. I have had like 6, 7 things to choose where to go or what to do. And I barely got in an hour before I had to get on this because I was at something else all day. And yesterday was at 2 other things. And I've had to say no to some other things. It's been crazy. But I want first off, I want to say, Nisi, I was so concerned about you, and then I didn't know like how to get in touch with you, and I was like, I probably can't even get in touch with her, but what I can do is I can light a candle and I can do whatever. So that's what I did for you because I was just like, I'm like, I can do that, and that's probably even better than me like trying to get in touch with you because you would be busy anyway. And so just want you to know you're on my mind, girl. So uh a strange thing. I'm happy that I can say this with the people who are here. Um I have had I've been struggling this month. And not even just because of my daughter's birthday and death date and all that. I've been struggling with some people who have, and I'm sure y'all will get this, some people who have privilege in this world and they think that they can say things, do things, and because of their privilege. And it's been stressing me because, sometimes if I say something, I'm just the angry Black woman, or I just don't say anything because I figure sometimes it's not the right time or place. Well, and I've been keeping my mouth shut, and along with the other things that's been going on and stressing about things, my neck's all broken out because I've been just keeping things inside. And anyway, I went to one thing I did say yes to at the last second. I went to a leadership conference thing yesterday, and the speaker that they had, she has only been, I think, in San Antonio for 14 years because I've been back for 20 years and she has been back 14 years. Well, she has been in these really high positions and she's gone through some really crazy stuff. And she was mentioning things, and she said, and it was just like opened up my chest, and I just like kind of like breathed this sigh because she did kind of like what I did. She said, somebody was asking questions and they said, if you could say anything to your younger self and all this stuff you were starting out on, what would you tell your younger self? And she kind of did just like I did a few minutes ago. She said, before I say this, let me look around. And she looked around, and and I was kind of surprised she said that because no one was really going to be in there because it was a sorority leadership, although people can't infiltrate your sororities nowadays. But she said, let me look around. And then she said, if I could tell my younger self anything, I would remind my younger self to never forget the deviance that white women can present. And I was like, oh my God, because that's all I've been dealing with this month. I've been dealing with that so much. And I've been trying to tell myself, like, you know, don't think that about people. Don't do what, maybe it's just them. But no, I'm really dealing with this and it's stressing me. And when she said that, I just was kind of like, oh my God, it's not just me, and it just felt like, oh God. And last night I came home and I think I had a small cry, and I just need to let it out because I've gone through some stuff this month, but it feels so good to see y'all's faces. Okay, I'll shut up now.
No, I appreciate you for sharing though. And like, no, I mean, that's the point of this space, right? Come here, show up authentically, give us, what's kind of going on. And that's why I also wanted to ask the question. I was just curious to see what you guys would bring up. Because at this point, we've seen each other enough. We know our names, we see our pronouns. And yeah, because it's just a nice intimate group today. It gives us space to like share a little bit more. So no, don't feel any type of way for talking. Thank you. And I also wanted to give just a little, toop that we have our Witches of Color meeting. I don't know. I haven't been able to go the past few months, but Cynthia, another great space to go and continue the conversation of like what you brought up here. Because the difference there, that space is not recorded. So you can even get more into the things you want to talk about. So I just want to remind you of that resource, which I know
you. Crap, I forgot this was recorded. Sorry.
Well, I can always like clip something out, and then whenever it like officially goes,
clip that part. Clip that part.
That's totally fine. And I will say, I don't think you said anything that was like insane. I feel like it made sense, but I can do that for you.
Yeah. God, I forgot.
It just feels so.
I mean, but it was just something, and it was that highlight, and it's almost the end of the month. And I've been dealing with it all month, so much so that I'm breaking out. And it was a highlight. To the point that I cried, Lord,
Yeah. And like, that's a very important thing to get into, because I'm sure you're not the only one who's had those experiences, for sure. I'm seeing the head nods. All right. But yeah, moving forward, thank you again, Cynthia, for sharing with us. Getting right into it, our book discussion. So with this book, and also partly because like I didn't fully read it myself, I'm sure that influenced some of the questions, but also just the style that it's written. It's not the same as like our other books where it's like, oh, let's talk about this chapter, or like, what was it about here? But also in some ways it is very similar because, there are the different rituals that she gives. So as you'll see with the questions, I'm more interested in this meeting today, just really hearing where the book took you specifically. So a lot of these are very vague and open because I wanted to provide room for that. There's just so much good information in here. I didn't think it would be fair to the book to try to like stay in one section or just really get into one area. I wanted you guys to really direct that. I think the only specific thing that I mentioned was the 9 works, which if you were to look at the table of contents, yeah, you can see the different works kind of listed out there. And I don't know if I think she had it written out somewhere else, but I know you can see just on the table of contents. And I just found the 9 works really interesting. Like just one, the way that she like spelled that out and what she decided to like be the first thing she wanted to talk about and then moving forward. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of point that was like the one specific thing that I brought up there. But to start the discussion, because I know 2 of y'all have finished the book, and Cynthia, you've read this before, so I feel like you guys already have so much more you can share. I want to, make that space and let someone else take us where you want to take us. I am so curious on, just everyone's thoughts on this one. So anyone can jump in.
Okay, I'll start. I mean, it's no secret that it's my second time reading it too, Cynthia. And also, thank you so much for lighting the candle, girl, because I think that helped with me only having been lost without power for 2 days. Thank you. I obviously love this book. This is my second time reading it as well. First time reading it all the way through. As far as, I guess I'll go with something that was somewhat confusing. And I guess it was confusing because of the terminology, not in concept. When she was talking about like the different levels of like consciousness, like the racial mind or whatever, it was kind of hard to pin that down, but it was more so just because of the terminology in the book. And I have the older version of the book too, because I know this has been like reprinted and whatever. That was the only thing that was somewhat confusing. What resonated, if you, for me, if you like Rachel Pollack, then you should love Yaya Tish. You should, because it's very, she writes in a similar kind of structure. Like the reason why she'll give you pieces of her life and then give you the work is, for me, I think it's because she wants to iterate the point that the magic is in the living. Like, I'm old school Southern Black. So like my grandma used to say all the time, like, if you don't understand something, you just keep living. Like it's in the lived experience. So she's trying to mesh it all together for you. And she can't really write it. Well, it would be a disservice, I would think, to write it in a way that would be separated. Like, here's this section of my life. Then here's this neat, tidy little working. Like she found out how to do these workings through living her life, through the encounters with She Who Whispers. Like it's all integrated. She wants you to have that integrated experience. And because she practices the one of the ATRs, a lot of those core beliefs in those religions are very communal and integrated. So it would be a massive disservice to the book if she would have written it in like the way that books are written now, especially the way that like beginner books are written now, where the front section is a little bit about like witchy history or something about the author. Like it all has to be integrated because it's a core belief in what she practices. So that's why it's great. That's why it's absolutely great. Um, and let's see, is there anything else I wanted to say on that? No, I'll let somebody else take it.
That was just so well said. Like I feel like you really hit the point there. And I love the comparison with Rachel Pollack. And then it has me thinking, you know, like the story we see all this time. Why is Rachel's books published or reprinted a lot more often? I feel like, because truly I didn't hear about this book until I came into contact with BronxWitch and like really started learning more about just African spirituality and the traditions. And that's where I came to find like such a resource, because I don't think on my own I would have landed across this book, but also never say never. So yeah, I just appreciated a lot what you said, DC.
Yeah, I agree that it's like definitely a take where it's um like you can't have magic and your daily life necessarily separate. You can't like compartmentalize it. Like it's integral that they're connected because they totally are. I think for me I really did like the book, but and I know she mentions like, hey, you know, y'all who aren't black, like you can do these things, but like for me, I'm always trying to be very conscientious about appropriation, and I like recognize like some things like Haitian voodoo like are very close traditions. So I've been sort of like on the fence of like, should I do this working? Like she says it's okay, but it's just one person. Um and like I just don't want to be appropriative.
I love that you brought that up. I had similar feelings reading this book, even though like she does say like, oh no, it's fine because these are practices that I'm giving out in this book. Like I know what I'm doing here. I still write similar to you, Steph, was like, should I be getting into this? Like, is it like, am I overstepping a boundary? Like, yes, I know she says it's okay, but is it okay in like a different way, especially considering the fact that this book was written in the 80s and like it was a different time. But actually, because we have the wisdom in the room, Cynthia and Nisi, I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about, yeah, non-Black people getting into some of the even nittier grittier workings in the book, because like she really goes in some different areas, especially with even connecting like connecting with deity. So yeah.
Well, you know, one thing that I think is pretty cool that I can just say right off. Um, do do both of you have the newer version?
I have the newer version.
Well, and like in the very beginning, I don't know if it's the acknowledgement or the forward or whatever. It's written by it's I think it's a reprint of the old one but she includes it there, and it's by Starhawk. And so it's not even a Black woman that's doing it. So is that, to me, it was like an opening to let people know, hey. And so that, to me, kind of like should let people, like, let you breathe a little sigh of relief, like, well, hey, you know, because Starhawk has all this other stuff, you know, and she's very Wiccan and from a long time ago, and everyone knows Starhawk, and I mean, she's kind of like a mother of stuff. But I wanted to oh, I'm sorry, Steph, were you finished about your stuff? I was just gonna just looking at your first thing up there, Nuri. Um what I thought, and I didn't remember this from when the first time I read it because it's been a while, and the what parts of her story resonated with me. I was like, oh man, I forgot this, or maybe I didn't forget it. Maybe it just came back to mind. But what resonated with me in the beginning of this book, when she talks about seeing things when she was young, and I was like, oh my God, because I used to always see things when I was young. But I grew up Church of God in Christ. Like some people call it apostolic or whatever, you know, church every night, you know, whatever. And you know, if you talked about that kind of stuff, it was of the devil, you know, that kind of thing. So no one wanted to see that, you know, or me talk about saying that I saw shadow people or what I thought was like, you know, maybe, you know, then they would be like, oh, that was a demon you're saying because it's a dark shadow person, or, you know, just different things. Or one time you can't tell me, you couldn't pay me to take it back that I didn't see this woman come through the window, but she was African and had all this stuff on and shaking shakeries or whatever come through my window. And you know, I just thought, I didn't remember that from before, or I don't know what I was going through because I don't remember it ever affecting me from reading that from last time. So I was like, that's pretty cool. And now what I thought was pretty cool too, with some of your other stuff, like the rituals and different things. Now I have grown so much from the first time that I read this book, because like for a while I practiced an ATR where it's funny to me because I say an ATR, but I was practicing Santeria. But of course that is but to me it's more so off of Ifa. But don't tell them that because they don't want to hear it. But you know, and so but for a long time, so a lot of the stuff she's saying or she's doing, or when you have the you know, the plate and you touch here and you touch there, and you know, and all this stuff, a lot of this stuff is so familiar to me now. And so it's like I was reading or going through it with new eyes. So it was almost like it was my first time, because I've grown so much from the very first time I ever read this. And it's just it's pretty cool. But I mean, there were a couple of things that I was like, you know, and with Nisi, when you mentioned about some of the racial stuff, but there was I don't know, like I had a issue with my grandma. You know how she said that in there, I don't know if Nori or Steph, if y'all happen to notice the part in there when if you had a ancestor or a grandmother or someone who, you know, you weren't feeling her, she wasn't feeling you, you didn't like it, and you wanted to put her in that part in the woods, you know. And I had to stop and think about that and really like try and say, you know what, I'm gonna leave that part right here, and I'm gonna go back to that later on, because and I'm gonna read it again later on or whatever, because my dad's mom just like didn't like me. I came to find out later on why she wasn't really crazy about me, but she did not, and I went through some craziness with her every summer, and so who knows? I might still give her a place on my altar. I'm gonna see if I can do some forgiveness, but I gotta work on me with her.
Something a little time can help with. But with the fact that you were mentioning towards the beginning that Starhawk is actually a white woman, I did not know that. I just assumed that like she was a black woman, and so I googled her just now, and I was like, oh, that made me feel a lot better. And then while you were talking, Cynthia, I was thinking about how, and I feel like a lot of us know this, or we see this happening a lot, where yes, there are so many different traditions, spiritualities, and there's so many similarities, right? Like prayer is called a million different things. What is the spell if not a prayer with a candle in front of you? Like, I think at least with like the Wiccan framework, right? How there is, oh, we have to cleanse, we have to protect, make the circle. And then sure, she's not necessarily talking about a circle in this book at any point, but there's that cleansing of the home, cleansing of yourself. Let's protect ourselves. And for me, being somebody who is an outsider, it's just really endearing, right? To see how everything has always been connected and everything really has come from somewhere. Because realistically, the traditions here are first before like the Wiccan traditions came. And what are the Wiccan traditions but just trying to put their finger on what's been happening for centuries beforehand. And yeah, I was just thinking how beautiful that is. But something that I did sort of want to point out, to like answer some of the questions, something that resonated with me a lot more than I thought was because I did get a chance to read like the first chapter, Growing Up Tipsy. And it made me think, and kind of back to the connection piece, it made me think about my time in the Christian church, the Pentecostal church. And there was one specific little retreat that we did. It was like a 3-day retreat weekend where we go out and like basically just praise God for 3 days straight on like 3 hours of sleep. And
That's a revival.
yes, yeah, revival. That's what they were called. Thank you. I remember like towards the end of that trip, and we could have a whole other conversation on how that goes. How I felt like tipsy on God. Like I really was like, I feel like I'm on a high right now, on just like praising Jesus and like singing the songs and like having the talks. And when she was saying like when I was growing up, that she essentially sort of always felt tipsy and sort of like having that running through her, I was like, wait a minute. This sounds, when I was reading it, I'm like, this sounds like it should be unfamiliar to me. But that part of me was like, no, like you've been in this area before. Like you have an idea of what it's like to be in that presence, right? Whether I'm still like seeking out that specific presence is a different question. But like I have a sense, I have an idea of that. And I love the way that she put it. Like it just made a lot of other buttons click in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, like that just really captures that, like that very specific spiritual feeling that I get a sense that you guys understand a little bit what I'm mentioning there. So that really resonated with me there. And I'll go into my other share right now because I'm just kind of in it. And I think it was towards the end of that chapter, or it might have been skimming, but the cleansing of your home, that the little ritual that she gave for that, the part that I found so initially, I was so like, what? It was using your urine, like your fresh urine in the morning to mop your floors with some sugar and perfume. And to me, and just like just my story, what I've been exposed to, that just sounded so crazy on that initial impulse of looking at it. But then I was like, wait, I don't know, something about it. It makes sense. Like, it really makes sense. And I'm like, I'm going to try it soon. I'll let you know when I do. But that working, it just, oh my, the amount of feelings I was having, because I was like so revolted at first. And I was like, actually, I trust you. I think you know more than I do. And I see, I want to learn more about this. I want to, yeah. And I just really want to try that working. And I guess that's really what I wanted to say there. And then I know she mentioned even in other areas, working with like your menstrual blood or just like working with blood in general. And how that's been an area I've been wanting to kind of lean into, but finding a way to do it that feels feels ethical in a way has been difficult for me, which is probably why I haven't done it yet. But yeah, seeing it in this book, it really kind of brought me back to thinking about those things and wanting to incorporate them in my practice. So yeah, I'm curious what are your guys' thoughts on the bodily fluids of it all? Like, is that I'm curious to hear.
I will jump in. Nothing new. Nothing new. You work with everything from blood to urine to spit to fecal matter. You really gotta get down and dirty with it. If you're going to use, if you're gonna use your urine, you don't need a lot. Maybe the equivalent of like a very small capful. Because there's small traces of ammonia in urine. So that's the cleansing part of the ritual that you're looking for. If you want to use something that's ammonia based, that's not your urine, then you're more than welcome to. But that is the reason why it's in the working, because the small traces of ammonia.
Never.
Um, mhm. You don't need a lot. Very small amount. Don't use a lot. You'll freak yourself out. But yeah, it's nothing new. Again, this is where being from the South is just 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Because reading this book was like listening to my auntie, like sit and talk and just give you information on information. The language, even though she's in New Orleans and it's slightly different, the principles are still the same. Going back to you guys talking about cultural appropriation though, one, because you all are people of color, you're in the club, friends. But I get it. There's a part in the book that resonated with me when it comes to that, and it's on page 253 in the old version. The success of the ritual and many others confirms my belief that as humans, we make cultural notions on universal principles. So you're talking about cultural appropriation, but we all operate under these universal principles. We're just expressing them differently per whatever culture we're coming up in. So maybe one culture will use rice, one culture will use a coconut, like she mentions further down, or like one culture will use coconut, rice, or cornmeal. So as long as you understand the principle of what you are doing, and you're just expressing that principle differently, and you're not taking that in as your own, as yourself, then you're not enacting on that cultural appropriation. Like, we're all eclectic in some way, shape, form, or like fashion. So you're not stealing or appropriating culture in any way by doing the rituals in the book, as long as you understand the universal principles from which they come from. That's all you need to know. You guys are fine.
Thank you. That on like I needed to hear that. Um, and just the little section you were reading, I just think it's so good. I'm going to read the paragraph out loud. Yeah, just because what better words than hers? The success of this ritual and many others confirms my belief that as humans, we make cultural notions on universal principles. The ancestral offering in Africa is made with coconut, in China with rice, in South America with cornmeal, but everybody worships. The truth of the matter is that all religions are about the worship of nature and reverence of those who have gone before, even in Christianity. The difference is that in some traditions, it has become shrouded in obscure symbolism. And that's the paragraph. And I just feel like that, yeah.
Because even when you read the ritual that comes before it, I was reading it and I was like, this can be Wiccan. This can be, it's basically the very staunch outline of like a Wiccan circle. So the universal principle is there. It's just the expression of how you're gonna perform it culturally is gonna be different for everyone, but it's there. That's why that paragraph hits.
And I was thinking of the same thing because and even when you were talking about some of this stuff, I was thinking too, because um there was a time when I was just like first blossoming and stuff. um I think I mentioned before, I was heavily Wiccan. I mean, I was Dianic, where it was all women. All we learned about was goddesses, but that was by design. I didn't want any male energy in my life. So I did that area of Wicca, Dianic Wicca, and I think I'd still do it again if I would, because everything, it just made you feel so good about yourself. And I was that goes into the bodily fluids. I was just gonna say this because I am much older. Um, the one thing that I wish I had done, and I guess I probably could have still had it or whatever, is I mean, of course I made witches bottles, witch bottles and stuff. I mean, my very first one I ever made, I still have it. And of course it is filled with my urine, and there's a tampon down in there. I mean, if I ever opened that thing, I probably would be like, what in the world? And there's nails down in there. I mean, there's everything down in that bottle, and it's sealed, and it's been sealed for years, probably almost 20 years or so. But um I never ever froze any of my menstrual blood, and I wish I had, because now it's too late because I no longer menstruate now. And so I wish I had. I mean, because of course, once it's frozen, you can take it with you. I mean, keep it for however how long you want. But I do remember when I stopped menstruating, I cried like a baby, and there were people, I don't know if it was my sister or my mom or someone who was like, "What's wrong with you?" And they couldn't understand, but because my mom is so, such a Christian, she and my sisters think that, they're dirty when they're menstruating. And I'm like, no, you're powerful. That's when you are at your most powerful. And they never could understand what I was saying. It's like, oh no, I have to take a bath 3 times a day, and I just can't stand being on my cycle, or I just feel whatever. Well, it was wonderful for me. Every month that was great, because I was just and I was trying to explain things, like, why do you think that they can't go inside of teepees for powwows, because things won't go right, and because you're so powerful that it can throw off other things, and people just couldn't understand that when I try to explain things. And it's just I don't know, but if I could go back and do something, that is what I would do with that part of myself, is I would freeze some of my menstrual blood. I mean, because they have those little vials you can put it in, I'd freeze it, and I would have it for all time, because you only need a little bit if you're gonna do something with something, it just depends. I mean, one time I did do something. Maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know. But and when I still was menstruating, but I just would do that. So that would be something I'd give as a tip if you are still, and to have that, because once it's gone, and you can't get that back. And I don't know. I've never asked a wise woman, someone else, if I could, like, just use my blood, like maybe prick my finger or do something and use my blood that way. But I don't think it's the same type, it's not the same.
That definitely sounds like an area where like we could have more conversations around. And then I'm thinking there's a whole new space. There's like a whole other area to talk about when I'm thinking about just like the queer people and then our trans community and like where does that menstruation lay in that land. But not to get in too far into that topic because I definitely don't know enough. I know, Steph, there was something you wanted to mention. So yeah, I just want to give you the floor.
Yeah, it was just really interesting because like you also have to take into account that like it's a natural process. Like menstruation is a natural process, and it is because I just remember reading that like it was like a TikTok thing where people were using their some of their menstrual blood to water plants, and like the plants are growing better. And I think that just sort of leans into that interconnectedness between like what's natural and just sort of giving back to the earth, which I thought was an interesting sort of thing. But yeah, I did like how she like was like, yeah, get the nitty gritty. Like these are natural like things. Like you can use them.
I don't have TikTok, so that's interesting. I mean, because I didn't even know people were doing that, but that's pretty cool. But of course, I don't. When I was mentioning it, I wasn't like thinking about, like trans people and all that kind of stuff. I was just bringing it up because you mentioned bodily fluids. And so I was just saying that's one thing that I would have done was I would have gotten frozen some of my menstrual blood.
Yeah, I appreciate your acknowledgement there, Cynthia. And that's not to say that your point, like the womanhood elements of it, is not invalid. Like everything you're saying is true. Um, and that's what's so fun about these conversations and just time going on is that, oh, we get to include other people. We get to discover new ways witchcraft can look like in our lives. And I think that's like the really cool thing of it. But yeah, I'm kind of curious if, especially our rereaders, have you tried any of the rituals? Are there any other workings in the book that you want to try, or maybe you've done in a different vein? Like I'm very curious to hear about that a little bit after talking about our blood magic.
I'm going to, and then I'll let you know. I'll update.
I think the one that I know for sure I've tried is just the one where you write down the names of your ancestors. That's how I kicked off my ancestral practice when I was first trying to get into it. Just writing down the names of everyone that I could think of in my family that had passed and just kind of going from there. Let's see. The transformation rituals are the ones that I actually want to try. I highlighted them. So the fear ritual, the courage ritual, those I would love to try.
Yes, as a Scorpio and we're entering Scorpio season, I saw the transformation rituals and I'm like, I need to get all over this, especially that fear one. I was like, I feel very called to like maybe even start there with this book just because again, the season's upon us. I don't see this seems like a really strong, powerful time to get into it. Yes.
When's your birthday, Miss Scorpio?
Ooh, November 7th.
Today's my sister's birthday. She's a Scorpio.
Happy birthday to her. Yeah, my birthday's exactly 1 week after Halloween. So that's just like a little fun thing with it. Yeah.
Yeah, the fear one could be very handy, all things considering.
Yeah, there are a lot of things I want to try in there. I mean, I love Luisah Teish, and I've sometimes on Eventbrite. I mean, I've signed up for stuff like I follow her on Eventbrite, so sometimes she has things, and you can it'll notify you, and you can do things with her. And what was the lady's name? Anisi, who the other day she said that she does her stuff with her. She was on our thing. She just did the.
How about Juju Bay?
No, she just did the 6-month thing with Allie.
Oh my god.
She just finished it, I think.
The name is escaping me.
Is it start with a T? Takara? No, maybe it's not Takara.
Oh, it probably is. Because we were talking in Witches of Color, and she made
Yes.
mention that she has the new version of the book. I think it is Takara.
And she also takes classes with
her.
Luisah Teish. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Is she still having classes happening? Luisah
Yes. Yes. She's Luisah Teish does classes, and Takara mentioned it in Witches of Color that she takes classes, because I thought that was pretty cool when I heard her say it last week.
That's super cool. I'm gonna have to look into that for sure. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what it would be like to have her be speaking with you, right? Oh my gosh. Any any other shares in any other areas really? Like we usually do, we're always jumping.
I want to say I do want to try going back to the rituals that you want to try. I want to try the walking Dambala, because when you come into like meditation or learning how to meditate or getting into altered states of consciousness, you're always taught to, well, I was taught to, be still. Like meditation is kind of like your stepping stone, and then you go from there. So having a ritual where you're moving and walking around like a snake, and that movement induces the altered state of consciousness, is pretty cool. It's like how I grew up Baptist. It's like how we praise and worship, how you can praise and worship so much, sing the songs, and it becomes an altered state of consciousness, and that's how you enter into the Holy Spirit. So that's cool, and I do want to try that.
I've actually been in a thing before where they were doing, well, we, not just they, we, and then it's almost like you're chanting, but you're singing Dambala Dambala, and you're actually doing the movements. And I've done that before. It was different.
Well, it sounds cool, and I can't wait to try it. Cause like sometimes I just sitting still is just hard, and especially with certain tones and music and things. Cause again, growing up in the church, when you hear those drums, when you hear the percussions, when you hear the songs, like we're taught, stand up, clap, stomp your feet. So this feels more like, it feels like it's something that I can align better with.
When so just hearing the share, what was it called? What did you just say, Nisi?
Walking Dambala.
Dambala, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain started now thinking about like therapy world of things and somatic therapy. Basically, looking towards the signals your body is sending you and paying attention to all those things.
Mm-hmm.
It then had me think, and don't ask me how my brain made these jumps because I'm saying it out loud, but I'm like, I don't know if it's really connecting. But I thought of that, and then I thought of just sex, right? When people are having sex, you enter this like altered reality, this like other space when you're in it. And then as everything in life is connected and everything is so just circle, I just circle captures it all. I was then thinking about how hearing you talk about it, just do you guys get what I'm putting down there? Where we do these things in life, we do these certain movements, these certain like sounds come out, whether intentional, whatever, and then they put us in this space that's like very liminal, even though, right? Yeah, that's a very liminal space, and I think it's so neat. And now I'm thinking like, ooh, where are the other places in life where this happens? Because now I'm thinking about two people when they're about to get into a fight, and they start yelling at each other. I'm now thinking there's probably a moment where the person fighting is like not quite there, but they've entered this new area. And now I'm just thinking about where else in life that might show up. And it's crazy how we can intentionally put ourselves in that space, and how we can also end up in that space unintentionally, right? Because then people don't necessarily want to fight that day when they woke up, but here we are. Or, hey, I'm intentionally deciding I want to meditate and I want to sort of enter this part of my body. I want to enter this sort of sacred space. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that to you guys and see what that makes you think of.
Yeah, I think that there is that moment, like that, just that little moment. And I think going back to the book, like I would like to try like some of the more spiritually grounding stuff, because like I've been pretty open. I'm pretty open with the fact that like my spiritual perception is like a rock, as in like I feel like I don't get that liminal space sometimes. So just looking at like what she's written is like, okay, let me try this, because at least it's something actionable that I can do, even if my like receptors are not the greatest.
You know what? I had to smile when you said, "Are you guys getting like what I'm saying?" And it made me think of like Nisi said, like how there are like these colloquialisms, things people say in the South or whatever, and it made me think of when people would say, "Are you picking up what I'm throwing down?" you know, and people would say that, "Are you picking up what I'm throwing down?" Or or sometimes if someone's fighting, like, "Oh, you just woke up and chose violence today," or whatever. I was thinking of these things, and I'm just smiling as you're talking. I wasn't laughing at you. I was just smiling and thinking of my brain was doing that thing like your brain was doing earlier, like just connecting with different things. And it made me also think of something else when y'all were talking about the appropriation thing, and then Nisi was talking about the different things, and I was thinking, okay, with the coconuts, not from what was in that paragraph, but I was thinking of the coconuts, and I was thinking of like things that like I practiced, and I was thinking of like in Santeria there's a lot of throwing of the coconuts and reading coconuts when you're asking questions, pieces of it, and there's ways that you read it. And then and then we didn't do a lot of reading with rice, but there was a lot of eating of it. But with the and then I was thinking of with the cornmeal, and in Voudon they make veves. Their veves are made with cornmeal on the floor, and I mean they're beautiful and intricate,
What's
and
you said Bebe? What's that?
it's like a sigil. Think of a sigil in Wicca, and just ma- making a sign or whatever, but they're making like one for Arzuli, like an Arzuli is always going to look the same pretty much, and but they make them on the floor, and they're made but they're always made out of cornmeal, and they're so beautiful, and like a lot of times they may be big, but the person who makes it looks great, and of course, and I know one time I couldn't believe it. I went to a metaphysical, it was a fair or whatever, and I found out later on I'm really not supposed to use henna, but I wanted a henna tattoo, but it wasn't that big, it was kind of tiny, and so I was trying to look for something, and I was like, no, I really don't see anything. I like incident. All of a sudden, I just asked the lady, "Do you have a Erzuli baby?" And she just looked at me like, "Oh my God, where'd you come from?" And she said, "Yes, I do." And she had it in this thing. Oh, see, she's showing you that's a veve, and they'll make that on the floor out of cornmeal. The little one down there, see the one at the bottom? Looks like it has a heart, and and I mean, I just think that is amazing that they do that. It's amazing. It's beautiful when you see it too. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's very cool. And thank you for showing that example, Nisi. That was really helpful. So wow, so like that'll be made out of like using cornmeal or using just right our materials. Very cool.
Or chalk, because they do them on like the street sometimes. Like they have the rituals out in the middle of the street, so they'll draw them in like white chalk, or they'll do them in cornmeal.
Another question for the group. Um Out of all the things in this book that there's so much to like grab and learn, where or how specifically yeah, how has Jambalaya inspired you? For me, it's really inspired me again to continue meshing the magic and the mundane in my life and continuing to or no, it's making me want to be more intentional and just have a little bit more of an awareness of how I'm moving and living, and seeing those spaces where I could be um seeing those opportunities to learn, and like noticing, oh my gosh, like today I am cooking and I'm realizing that while I'm cooking today, I am feeling like I'm present in the moment. I'm noticing the smells more. This is making me think of this or that. And then this simple moment of cooking brings me somewhere else instead of, just showing up to the kitchen, doing the meal and moving on. So that's where I feel inspired by this book, like continuing to see like where the blends are and continuing to challenge myself to live in that blended way. What about for you guys? That's a big question, so think about it.
I think for me, it was just like you meant, like it to dovetail with what you said, like just sort of that living up more authentically and just sort of like trusting yourself and trusting like your path, I guess. Like it's gonna go not necessarily in the direction that you expect sometimes, and just sort of embrace that journey.
For me, this had funny because the book that I showed y'all the Veve from is a book called The Magic of Marie Laveau. So this book has inspired me to actually do the work, like do the things. So I really want to get back into a more consistent ancestral practice. So this is a great time to get started there. So I really want to hunker down and actively work my altar, like knowing that I have a fireplace in my apartment, and part of what she talks about in the book, she goes over the 7 African powers, the Orishas. So while I was reading that part, I was looking at places in my home, like I have a mantle over here, so things could go here. I have a fireplace, things can go here. I can maybe put a little something something behind my front door, or put something in my bedroom. So again, just actively doing the work is what this book has inspired me to do.
And also for me, it's just kind of getting back to doing it, because I practiced Santeria pretty heavily. At one point, it's all about the 7 African powers, and so I think like just getting back to different things, and also um not being down on myself when I don't do something, and realizing she talks about how um kind of like, okay, like Nuri, if you're cooking, just hey, take some the first part before you eat, just take some out and give that and keep that for the ancestors. And and when you're just, and don't like getting on yourself, like maybe um about building altars. Just when she in the book, when it talked about how you may look and say, hey, you have grandma's picture on the table, and there's a doily, and you have, and on the only thing you're missing is like maybe a glass of water, and that could be an altar right there. And it's like simple little things, and you're not even thinking about it, and nothing has to be elaborate. And I just kept thinking, like, she's so right, that just small little things, and you could just have it, like you said, Nisi, and this could be in your room, and this can be there, and this can be behind. There's one thing that we do, and stuff is behind there are things behind my sofa when you first walk in my house, and that's just gonna be there no matter what. But it's like I could have some stuff in my room, and I normally do keep, but I need to start to keep remembering to keep that glass of water by my bed, and in the morning to get rid of it, flush, and then put some new and refresh it every evening and stuff like that. And just different things, and just being a little bit more intentional like I used to be, instead of just kind of sometimes blowing things off. Because my ancestors won't blow me off, and I don't want them to blow me off.
I love hearing all the different ways that we've all been inspired by the book. And then just thinking, even though all our shares were like a little bit different, I still feel like it's just proof that Luisah, like, she did the work, or she made sure her point was going to get across in writing this book, because I feel like all of us feel a little bit more called to look at our life a little bit more intentionally and move with a different kind of honesty with it. And looking at the time, I just noticed it's like almost 8:45. I wanted to give I wanted to give one more moment if anybody had anything else they wanted to share that we haven't had a chance to bring up yet. And before we conclude our conversation tonight.
I just want to thank Nisi and Cynthia for being like, you're part of the sisterhood too. Like, you can do some of these rituals. I appreciate that, because I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, that was very much appreciated. And and before we wrap up here, just thank you again to all of you guys for coming back month after month and having these discussions and reading the books and giving your time, right? Because yes, it's an hour and a half here, but then there's also all the hours of the reading that we're doing. But yeah, I just love coming here and just hearing everybody's knowledge, and then our embodied wisdom coming out too. It's just great. But yeah, that will conclude our discussion for today. So now we're going to move on to our closing announcements. So first off, here's just a little snippet. It's kind of small text. I'll read it. Next month, we're reading Ancestral Whispers, which is very appropriate to things that were being brought up just now. So we'll have even more information on working with our ancestors, which was sort of intentional with reading Consorting with Spirits last month. So learning a little bit of spirit work, getting a little bit of the wisdom this month, and the next month going a little bit more into specifics. But anyways, so what is this book about? Presenting historical and cultural examples of ancestral veneration from around the world, Ben Stimson shows us how you can build a strong, healthy relationship with your ancestors. Ancestral Whispers provides exercises and journal prompts specifically designed to help you develop an authentic living practice. He also reveals the different types of ancestors and discusses the physical elements of practice, including sacred space, objects of power, and offerings. And he also encourages you to explore the elements of pilgrimage and reflect deeply on your own beliefs. And with this book, you can create a legacy for current and future generations. So that's just like a little snippet on the book. And I'm already excited to talk about this one because November, ancestors, we all get it. I'm excited to talk about it. But yeah, that's a little snippet for next month. The cover of the book, it has a green tree on it, and there's like a little heart in the middle, or like the tree looks like a heart, if you were curious what it looks like. And also, whenever the event goes up, you'll see the picture as well, because I just noticed there's no picture of the actual book here. And then what else do we have going on? So next month, some events. November 9th at 5 p.m., Allie is having another one of her witch talks, which will also be live streamed as it was last month. In September, when she had her first witch talk, we were talking about overcoming religious trauma, and we had a nice little chat. I got to be there in person, so I got to have a little wine with her too. But yeah, come out to the next one, which will be happening November 9th. And then our next Witches of Color support group, November 17th, 10:30 p.m. EST. And then Moonlit Metaphysics, November 15th at 8:30 p.m. And I think this month, it's falling on the same day the full moon is. So be sure to be there to get some great info from Alexis. I'm not sure what the topic is just yet, but you'll see the details in the events tab when it comes up. And then for us, our next book club meeting is going to be November 24th, 7:30 p.m. And we're going to be talking about Ancestral Whispers by Ben Stimson. So thank you all for being here tonight. I love this conversation. And yes, Cynthia.
I looked in two places. I think I'm looking wrong. I'm not sure. But and I'm a little confused. Maybe I'll type it and then you can and ask the question. But I don't know if I can't remember if Allie said she's going to rework it or she's thinking of reworking it. The tiers or the membership tiers. I don't remember as to how this is going to be done. I think that she said Nisi, did she say she was thinking about reworking something and then she was going to put it out? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think she said she was thinking about it, but nothing had been like concrete yet. So
Okay.
when she finally comes to that conclusion, I guess she'll put it in
Okay.
put it in the cover feed. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on in my head that I don't always remember.
No, totally fair. I do know, and there was a post about it, but it was a little bit ago. I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but there was recently the new tiers of outer core and decadent. Is that what you're referring to? Or did she say something?
Yeah,
different?
but she was talking about in that, and I don't know, because I was trying to think of like when it came to the talks that she was giving, and when